Picture this. You are sitting by a roaring, perfectly arranged fire in the living room of this stunning historic home in Portland, Maine.
Oh, that sounds ideal right now.
Right. The hearth is radiating this incredible, deeply comforting warmth. You have a heavy blanket, maybe, a hot drink in your hands.
Essential for a Maine winter, for sure.
Exactly. And right outside those antique, slightly rattling window panes, a classic New England nor'easter is just absolutely howling.
Oh, yeah, those storms do not mess around.
They really don't. We are talking about 40-mile-an-hour winds whipping straight off the freezing dark waters of the Atlantic Ocean and Casco Bay.
It's a serious weather event.
Just a tempest of sleet, snow, and driving freezing rain. But sitting there, you feel incredibly safe. You feel like you are inside a fortress.
You feel untouchable, right? Like the elements can't reach you.
Exactly. But, and this is the crazy part, what if I told you that the exact structure keeping you warm is simultaneously being pulled apart from the inside out?
Which is such a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It really is. And even wilder, the primary culprit threatening to bring that chimney down isn't the raging fire, but the condition of the gutters just outside your window.
Yeah, that paradox is it's the perfect starting point for us today. Because we have this deep-seated psychological need to view our homes, especially structures built from brick and stone, as these finished, impenetrable monoliths.
Right, like a castle wall or something.
Precisely. We think, the roof is the roof, the walls are the walls, and the chimney is simply this permanent pillar dropped onto the house to just defy time and gravity forever.
I mean, it's Brooke. It feels invincible.
It does feel that way. But building science reveals a completely different reality. House is not a static object at all. It's a highly dynamic, actively breathing machine.
A breathing machine. I love that description.
And it is engaged in a daily, microscopic war with the elements.
Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are going to deconstruct that hidden war.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. We are going to look at the mechanical, chemical, and physical realities of a home's winter defense system, focusing specifically on the chimney and the roofline.
Because that intersection is where so much of the action happens.
Exactly. And to guide us through this, we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got a collection of service guides, detailed field reports, and technical articles written by John Constantine from Select Chimney Services.
They do incredible work up there.
They really do. They are a specialized masonry and chimney company operating right out of the heart of Portland, Maine, specifically zip code 04019.
Which is a very specific and challenging environment.
Yes, and these sources are so compelling because they aren't written by theorists looking at weather models in a sterile lab.
Right, these are the people actually doing the work.
Exactly. They are written by technicians who are up on steep slate roofs, dropping cameras down century-old flues, and seeing the absolute destruction that coastal weather inflicts on masonry every single day.
And their geographic location makes these sources particularly valuable for understanding building physics. Coastal Maine operates as this intense environmental crucible.
A crucible is a good word for it. It's harsh.
Very harsh. I mean, building materials that might survive for a century in a mild or arid climate, well, they are subjected to an incredibly aggressive combination of moisture, thermal shock, and corrosive atmospheric conditions in Portland.
So it's basically the ultimate stress test for a house.
Exactly. The insights from Select Chimney Services provide this microscopic lens into the vulnerabilities of all homes everywhere.
Okay, let's unpack this. And I want to start with the fundamental misconception that sets homeowners up for massive structural failures.
The big one.
Yeah, because when I look at a chimney, I immediately associate the danger with what happens inside it.
Sure, you think of the heat.
Right. I think of the intense heat, the smoke, the soot, and the obvious risk of fire. That's what seems dangerous.
It's a very intuitive assumption.
But the sources establish right away that while fire is a risk, obviously, the actual enemy, like the relentless silent killer of masonry, is water.
Yeah, water. It's
Yeah.
the universal solvent. And its destructive capacity on a house is entirely a function of patience and physics.
Patience and physics. Okay, explain that.
Well, to comprehend how water dismantles a brick tower, we have to look at the specific climate profile they describe. Portland gets over 45 inches of precipitation annually.
Wow, 45 inches. That's a lot of rain and snow.
It's a staggering volume of liquid constantly washing over the exterior envelope of the structure.
And it isn't just pure, clean rain falling from the sky, right? The sources emphasize the specific atmospheric chemistry of the coast.
Yes, the atmospheric chemistry drastically accelerates the degradation. You have high coastal humidity, which ensures that porous materials rarely have the opportunity to completely dry out.
So the chimney is just constantly damp.
Essentially, yes.
Sure.
And more importantly, you have the corrosive salt air blowing off the Atlantic.
Ah, the salt. That's the real kicker.
It is. Salt introduces two devastating variables to masonry. First, salt is hygroscopic.
Hygroscopic meaning it attracts water.
Exactly. It actively attracts and holds moisture from the surrounding air. So a brick surface covered in microscopic salt residue will stay damp much longer than a clean brick.
Oh, wow. I never even thought about that.
And second, salt chemically lowers the freezing point of water.
Wait, so if the salt lowers the freezing point, the water doesn't turn to ice at 32 degrees Fahrenheit like it normally would.
Right. It stays liquid as the temperature drops down into the 20s.
Which means it has more time to penetrate deeper into the material before it finally freezes.
Precisely. And to understand why that matters, we really need to zoom in on the physical structure of brick and mortar.
Because they aren't just solid rocks.
No, not at all. They might feel solid and impenetrable to the human hand, but under a microscope, they resemble rigid, hardened sponges.
Sponges. Okay, that changes the visual.
Yeah, they are riddled with this intricate network of microscopic capillary voids. So when freezing rain hits the chimney, or when snow melts on a sunny afternoon, that liquid water is drawn deep into those capillaries.
It just sucks it right in.
Exactly.
And then the sun goes down, the nor'easter blows in, and the temperature plummets.
And that's when the trap springs.
Right, because the water trapped inside the brick finally hits that lowered freezing point. And the text highlights a specific data point that completely changed how I view this entire process.
The expansion rate.
Yes, water expands by roughly 9% when it transitions from a liquid to a solid.
And that 9% expansion, that is the fundamental mechanism of destruction in cold weather masonry.
It's hard to visualize what that actually does inside a brick, though.
Well, think about the physical constraints.
Yeah.
You have liquid water occupying a tiny, rigid, completely unyielding microscopic chamber of fired clay or cured cement.
Right. It has nowhere to go.
Exactly. When that water freezes and demands 9% more volume, it generates immense, highly localized hydrostatic pressure.
How much pressure are we actually talking about here?
We are talking about thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch, acting entirely from the inside out.
That is terrifying. Instead of like a slow weathering process, it sounds more like millions of microscopic steel wedges being driven into the brick by a hydraulic press, millimeter by millimeter, every single time the temperature drops.
That is a highly accurate physical analogy. And this isn't just a one-time event either.
Right, because winter lasts for months.
Exactly. Portland experiences dozens of rapid freeze-thaw cycles every single winter. The water thaws, penetrates a fraction of a millimeter deeper into the new microfractures it just created, and then it freezes again.
So it's progressive, it just compounds on itself.
Yes, it's a compounding mechanical failure. In the masonry industry, this specific type of damage is called spalling.
Spalling, S-P-A-L-L-I-N-G.
Correct. The repeated internal hydraulic pressure eventually overcomes the tensile strength of the brick, causing the outer face of the masonry to simply shear off and detach entirely.
But wait, if this warfare is happening inside the microscopic pores of the brick, how do we even know it is happening before a massive structural failure?
It's a good question.
Because I'm assuming homeowners aren't out there with microscopes checking the capillary action of their chimneys.
No, definitely not. But the sources outline very clear macroscopic visual cues that indicate this microscopic spalling is actively occurring.
Okay, what's the first thing you look for?
The most immediate red flag is discovering actual physical debris.
Like chunks of brick.
Yeah, if you are inspecting your roof line and you see thin, curved flakes of red or orange clay resting on your shingles.
Oh, wow.
Or, if you look inside your fireplace and notice small tips of brick accumulating on the hearth, well, the microscopic fractures have officially become a macroscopic structural problem. The face of the brick has literally been blown off.
Yeah. You are literally finding the shrapnel of the freeze-thaw cycle.
That's exactly what it is, shrapnel. Another critical visual indicator detailed in the text is something called efflorescence.
Yes. I saw that term used extensively in John Constantine's reports.
It's a very common issue.
The word itself sounds almost botanical, right? Like a plant blooming. But the context made it clear it is definitely a symptom of water intrusion.
Well, the Latin root actually does mean to flower out, which describes the visual mechanism perfectly.
Okay, how does it look?
Efflorescence manifests as a powdery, white, crystalline stain on the surface of the brick. It often resembles powdered sugar or like the heavy salt deposits you might see on a soft pretzel.
I have definitely seen that on old buildings. I always just thought it was faded paint or something.
A lot of people do. But to understand efflorescence, you have to look at the chemistry of the masonry itself. Brick and mortar naturally contain various water-soluble mineral salts.
Okay.
When liquid water penetrates deeply into the chimney, it dissolves those internal salts.
And then as the ambient humidity drops or the sun hits the brick, that moisture begins to evaporate, right? And it draws the water back out to the surface.
Exactly. The evaporation process acts like a pump. As the water slowly migrates out of the microscopic capillaries to evaporate into the air, it carries those dissolved internal salts along with it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and when the water finally vaporizes at the surface, it leaves the solid mineral salts behind as that white crust.
So if a homeowner sees white powder staining their chimney, they really shouldn't mistake it for a simple cosmetic issue.
Definitely not. It's not just fading brick color.
It is a literal roadmap, proving that massive amounts of water have successfully bypassed the exterior of the brick, driven deep into the core, dissolved the material, and bled back out.
It is undeniable proof of a compromised exterior envelope, period.
Wow. Are there any other visual cues?
The third major one is the presence of rust. If a homeowner shines a flashlight up into their flue and observes rust flaking off the metal damper, or sees orange rust stains streaking down the firebox walls.
Then water is getting all the way inside.
Exactly. It's no longer just attacking the brick. It's actively pooling inside the internal mechanical components of the system.
This breakdown of the masonry makes me think heavily about the age of the housing stock mentioned in the sources.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The historical context is huge here.
Yeah, because the text specifically calls out historic Portland neighborhoods like the West End and Munjoy Hill. These areas are renowned for their stunning Victorian, Federal, and Greek Revival architecture.
Beautiful buildings.
They really are. But we are talking about homes built anywhere from 80 to over 150 years ago.
And that historical context fundamentally changes the stakes of the freeze-thaw cycle.
How so?
Well, Portland experienced a massive, devastating fire in 1866 that leveled much of the city.
Right, the Great Fire.
Yes. And the subsequent rebuilding boom relied heavily on local brick and masonry. Now, the master craftsmen who built those Victorian chimneys did phenomenal structural work.
They really built them to last.
They did. But the materials they had available in the late 19th century are vastly different from modern standards.
I mean, they were building a century before the invention of modern chemical waterproofing compounds.
Not only that, but the composition of the mortar itself was different. Historic masonry heavily utilized lime-based mortar rather than the rigid Portland cement that became standard in the mid-20th century.
What's the difference between lime mortar and Portland cement?
Lime mortar actually has some incredible benefits. It is somewhat flexible, allowing these massive, heavy brick structures to settle over decades without severely cracking.
Oh, that's smart. It moves with the house.
Yeah, it can even self-heal microscopic hairline fractures to a small degree as rain dissolves the lime and redistributes it.
That's amazing for 19th century tech.
It is. But the major trade-off is that lime mortar is exceptionally porous. It absorbs water far more readily than modern cement.
So you have these beautiful, towering, century-old brick chimneys that are basically inherently designed to soak up the coastal storms like a sponge.
Which brings us to a stark comparison made in the source material. A traditional lime mortar chimney built in 1890 might easily stand for well over a century in a dry, arid climate like the American Southwest.
Sure, where it hardly rains.
Right, where the primary environmental stressors are simply wind and thermal expansion from the sun. But take that exact same architectural structure, using the exact same materials, and place it in the aggressive, wet, freeze-thaw crucible of Portland, Maine.
It's a totally different ballgame.
Completely. The constant water intrusion and the expansive force of freezing ice mean that Chimney could face catastrophic structural failure in half the time. The local climate dictates the lifespan of the material.
You know, this really challenges the assumption we make when buying an old house.
It really does.
We look at a home built in 1900 and think, well, it's been standing for over a century. It must be invincible. It has survived everything.
Survivor bias, right?
Exactly. But in reality, it has been absorbing microscopic damage every single winter for over 100 years. The structural integrity might be hanging by a thread, and we are just waiting for the one freeze-thaw cycle that finally pushes the masonry past its breaking point.
And that delayed realization is exactly why Constantine's company, Select Chimney Services, stresses that proactive intervention is absolutely mandatory for these historic structures.
Because we have to give them the defenses they didn't have when they were built.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because they were not built with modern chemical defenses, we have to retroactively apply them.
And the sources mention industrial-grade waterproofing agents designed specifically for marine environments. But wait, if older brick relies on a certain amount of breathability, as you mentioned with the lime mortar, how do you waterproof it without trapping moisture inside and causing even more spalling?
That is the core challenge of masonry preservation right there.
Because you can't just wrap it in plastic.
No, you can't. Older methods of waterproofing often involved applying thick, film-forming sealants. They were essentially painting the brick with a layer of liquid rubber or silicone.
That sounds like it would trap everything.
It was disastrous. I mean, it stopped rain from getting in, sure,
Yeah.
but it also stopped the internal moisture, like the vapor migrating from the warm interior of the house, from getting out.
Oh no, so the moisture would hit the rubber barrier from the inside?
Condense, freeze, and literally blow the face of the brick off underneath the sealant.
That completely backfires. So modern chemical solutions must account for vapor transmission.
Yes. Modern professionals use penetrative repellents, specifically compounds like siloxanes or silanes.
Siloxanes, got it.
These chemicals do not form a film on the surface. Their molecular structure is small enough to physically penetrate deep into the capillary voids of the brick and mortar.
So they go inside the sponge, basically.
Exactly. And once inside, they chemically bond with the silica in the masonry. They line the pores with hydrophobic molecules.
So they actually change the surface tension of the microscopic pores.
Precisely. The pores remain physically open, allowing water vapor gas to easily escape and the chimney to breathe.
But the liquid can't get in.
Right. The hydrophobic lining creates a surface tension barrier that prevents liquid water droplets like rain or melting snow from entering the capillary in the first place.
That is brilliant chemistry.
It is. Applying a siloxane repellent in a marine environment like Portland isn't a cosmetic luxury. It is a critical defensive upgrade that stops the freeze-thaw cycle at the source.
Okay, so treating the masonry with a breathable repellent shields the vertical faces of the chimney from driving rain. But we still have to account for how water acts under the force of gravity.
Yes, gravity is always working against you.
And the sources make a sharp transition here, linking the survival of the chimney to a completely separate system on the house. To save the masonry, the text insists we have to meticulously manage the gutters.
I know, on the surface, connecting chimney health to gutter maintenance seems entirely counterintuitive.
It really does, because gutters are horizontal troughs at the bottom edge of the roof, designed to direct rainwater away from the foundation, to prevent flooded basements.
Right, and the chimney is a vertical tower, often piercing the roofline way up near the peak.
Yet, John Constantine points out that a simple, routine gutter cleaning, like a job that might cost $150, can literally be the determining factor in whether a massive, structurally vital brick chimney survives the winter or suffers thousands of dollars in water damage.
It's a huge return on investment.
It really is. The mechanics of this connection are just fascinating to me.
To map out that mechanical connection, we have to analyze the anatomy of the roofline. Specifically, the exact point where the vertical plane of the chimney intersects with the sloped plane of the roof deck.
Okay.
From a building science perspective, this intersection is inherently problematic.
Well, yeah, because you are essentially cutting a massive hole in a waterproof roof deck and plugging it with a rigid, highly porous tower of heavy bricks.
Exactly. And you're joining two materials that possess radically different physical properties.
Wood and stone.
Right. The roof structure is composed of wooden rafters, plywood decking, and asphalt or slate shingles. Wood expands and contracts significantly with changes in ambient humidity,
While the chimney is rigid masonry.
which expands and contracts primarily based on thermal changes, both from the weather outside and the intense heat of the fires inside.
So these two massive structures are moving, settling, and shifting at completely different rates, independent of one another.
They are. So a rigid seal between them would just tear itself apart the first time the temperature changed.
How do builders bridge that dynamic gap, then, to keep water from just pouring into the living room?
They utilize a system called flashing. Flashing acts as the flexible membrane bridging the gap. It is typically constructed from malleable metals like aluminum, copper, or historically lead.
Okay, so metal strips.
Yeah. A skilled mason will meticulously weave sections of metal called step flashing into each overlapping layer of the roof shingles as they progress up the slope alongside the chimney.
Weaving it in layer by layer.
Exactly. Then they install counterflashing. which is another layer of metal that is physically embedded into the mortar joints of the brickwork, folding down over the step, flashing to create a continuous, overlapping watershed.
I think of the flashing system like the main zipper on a high-end expedition-grade waterproof jacket.
That's a great way to picture it.
Right. Because the fabric of the jacket could be constructed from the most advanced, breathable Gore-Tex material on the planet, completely impervious to a torrential downpour. But if the zipper is broken, misaligned, or unzipped even slightly, the quality of the fabric becomes irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant.
The water's going to find that weak point, pour inside, and absolutely soak you.
The zipper analogy captures the vulnerability perfectly. The flashing is the single point of failure for the entire roof system surrounding the chimney.
So if the flashing fails, everything fails.
If the flashing is compromised, the exterior defenses of the brick no longer matter at all. Liquid water will bypass the vertical masonry entirely, plunging straight down into the structural envelope of the house.
Rots the wood, ruins the drywall.
It rots the wooden roof decking, saturates the attic insulation, and critically, it begins to dangerously degrade the masonry of the chimney stack from the inside of the house, below the roofline, where it cannot evaporate.
But wait, if the flashing is the zipper, how do clogged gutters cause the zipper to fail? I mean, the gutters are feet away, down at the eaves.
The failure is the result of a chain reaction driven by thermal dynamics and hydrostatic pressure. The test walks us through the exact timeline.
Okay, walk me through it.
During the autumn in Portland, the landscape sheds an immense amount of organic material. You have broad maple leaves, oak leaves, and particularly those tiny, resilient pine needles that are notoriously difficult to clear out of a system.
Pine needles are the worst for gutters.
They really are. Now, if the homeowner neglects the gutters, this organic material decomposes into a heavy, dense, wet sludge that completely blocks the downspouts and the gutter troughs.
So the trough basically becomes a sealed container holding wet compost.
Exactly. Then winter arrives and drops a foot of snow onto the roof.
Okay.
The heat generated inside the living space of the home naturally rises. Even in a well-insulated historic house, a significant amount of thermal energy escapes through the attic, gently warming the underside of the upper roof deck.
And that escaping heat causes the layer of snow sitting directly against the upper shingles to melt, turning into liquid water.
Yes, and that liquid water obeys gravity, running down the slope of the roof beneath the insulating blanket of the remaining snow, heading straight for the gutters to drain away.
But it encounters the blockage.
Exactly. The water hits the gutter full of frozen organic sludge and has nowhere to exit. It begins to pool right at the edge of the roof.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Now, we introduce the temperature differential. The edge of the roof, the eaves extending past the exterior walls, does not receive any rising heat from the house. It is fully exposed to the freezing ambient air,
So the pooled water hits this freezing zone and turns into solid ice.
which forms the foundation of an ice dam.
And then, as the heat from the house continues to melt more snow higher up the roof, that new liquid water flows down, hits the ice dam, pools behind it, and freezes too, right?
Increasing the height and thickness of the dam,
It just builds on itself.
the ice dam grows aggressively. As the volume of ice increases, it creates a massive reservoir of trapped liquid water behind it. Because water continuously flows down the slope, the reservoir deepens, and the hydrostatic pressure increases.
That hydrostatic pressure is incredibly powerful.
It is. The ice dam ruthlessly forces this trapped, freezing water upward, pushing it back up the slope of the roof against gravity.
Pushing water upward completely subverts the fundamental design of a roof.
It really does.
I mean, shingles and flashing are engineered purely to shed water flowing downward with gravity. They overlap like the scales on a fish or the feathers on a bird. If water is flowing down, it just washes over the overlapping seams.
But when the ice dam forces water up the roof, it is driving that water directly against the grain of the overlapping shingles and that delicate step flashing we talked about.
Oh, man.
The hydrostatic pressure literally shoves the water underneath the bottom edge of the metal. The sheer expansive force of the ice as it freezes underneath the flashing can bang heavy copper, pop steel rivets, and pry the metal completely away from the brick.
So the ice dam literally unzips the waterproof seal around the chimney.
It creates a direct, pressurized injection of water straight into the most vulnerable structural gap in the entire house.
That is wild.
The connection between the gutters and the chimney is a brutal lesson in systemic failure. Cleaning the gutters is not merely a chore to keep water from pooling around your foundation shrubs.
It's so much more than that.
It is a critical, proactive structural defense mechanism for the chimney. If the gutters are clear, The melted snow drains away harmlessly, the ice dam never establishes a foundation, and the delicate flashing remains secure against the brick.
But if you ignore the gutters, you are essentially setting up a hydraulic press designed to dismantle your chimney at the roofline.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Wow. Okay, so we have thoroughly mapped the exterior siege. We understand that water is the ultimate enemy, the freeze-thaw cycle is the weapon of choice, and intact, flashing backed by clean gutters serves as the primary shield.
The exterior is covered.
Right, but the sources mandate that once we secure the exterior envelope, we must immediately pivot our attention to the interior.
Which is a whole different battlefield.
Because the threats lurking inside the chimney flue represent an entirely different category of physical and chemical danger.
Absolutely. Moving from the outside to the inside completely changes the nature of the threat. Outside, the chimney is fighting weather, moisture, and ice. Inside, it is managing the highly volatile, extreme byproducts of combustion.
And see, when I visualize the inside of a chimney, my mind naturally defaults to the cozy, romantic image we painted at the very beginning of the deep dive.
Of course.
You strike a long wooden match, light a carefully constructed fire on a bitter January night, and just enjoy the smell of wood smoke and the crackle of the logs. It feels inherently domestic, controlled, and safe.
The physical reality described in John Constantine's field reports shatters that illusion of safety completely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
The cozy fire you are enjoying is actively manufacturing a highly dangerous combustible substance called creosote, and the source is specifically warned against its most severe form, known as creosote glazing.
Now, I'm familiar with the concept of soot, and I know chimney sweeps remove creosote dust, but the term glazing implies, like, a structural transformation.
It is a transformation, and a dangerous one.
What exactly is creosote glazing, and how does a simple wood fire produce it?
To understand glazing, we must examine the chemistry of burning wood. Wood is not pure fuel. It is a complex organic material composed of cellulose, lignin, and a significant amount of bound moisture, even when it's properly seasoned.
There's always some water in it.
Always. When you ignite a piece of wood, the fire's initial energy output must be spent boiling off that internal water.
Okay, that makes sense.
If the wood is unseasoned or wet, or if the fire isn't drafted properly to burn hot and aggressively, the combustion process becomes incomplete.
So a cooler fire means the wood isn't breaking down entirely.
Exactly. The incomplete combustion releases a dense cloud of unburned particulate matter, microscopic droplets of tar, and highly volatile organic gases.
And that volatile mixture is what we call smoke.
Yes. As this hot smoke drafts up the chimney, it eventually encounters the relatively cooler walls of the upper flue near the roofline.
And the temperature differential causes the gases to undergo a phase change.
Right.
It's identical to the physics of steam from a hot shower hitting a cold bathroom mirror and condensing into water droplets.
That is the exact mechanical process. But instead of harmless water, the smoke condenses into creosote. And creosote accumulation occurs in 3 distinct stages.
Okay, what's stage 1?
Stage 1 is a light, dusty, velvet-like coating of soot that is easily brushed away. Stage 2 occurs when that dust mixes with more moisture and begins to form a porous, crunchy, almost honeycomb-like accumulation.
And stage 3 is the glazing.
Stage 3 is the critical danger zone. With repeated fires, the heat from below bakes the stage 2 creosote. The moisture is driven out, and the volatile organic compounds melt and fuse together onto the walls of the flue.
Ugh, that sounds awful.
It hardens into a dense, thick, highly reflective, tar-like substance. That is creosote glazing. You have essentially coated the entire interior vertical surface of your chimney with concentrated, solidified, highly combustible fuel.
Wow. It transforms the flue from an exhaust pipe into a powder keg.
Literally.
If a stray ember or a particularly hot fire ignites that glazed tar, you have a chimney fire.
And a chimney fire is not a contained, manageable event. It is a violent, explosive reaction.
Because it's burning fuel all the way up the pipe.
Exactly. The combustion of glazed creosote can rapidly drive internal flue temperatures over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
2,000 degrees?
Yes. The intense draft pulls oxygen up the chimney, turning the structure into a literal blast furnace. Homeowners who have survived chimney fires often describe the sound as akin to a commercial freight train driving directly through their living room.
That is terrifying. And the sources cite a sobering statistic from FEMA regarding this exact scenario.
The numbers are grim.
Yeah, heating fires, specifically those involving solid fuel and chimneys, account for a massive percentage of residential fires in rural and semi-rural areas. and creosote buildup is identified as the primary catalyst.
Therefore, a professional chimney sweep is not simply performing janitorial dusting.
They aren't just cleaning up ash.
No, they are literally disarming a highly reactive chemical bomb that is slowly coating the inside of the home's infrastructure.
That's a powerful way to put it.
But the sources push deeper than just the creosote itself. We have to analyze the structural material the creosote is clinging to.
The inside of the chimney itself.
Right. In the context of these historic Portland homes built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, what material was used to line the inside of that brick column?
Historically, the building standard for lining a brick chimney was terracotta clay tiles.
Yes, terracotta.
They are essentially rectangular fired clay pipes stacked end to end inside the brick structure to create the smooth vertical channel for the smoke.
Terracotta was the undisputed industry standard for decades. It is relatively inexpensive to manufacture, and clay is inherently fire-resistant.
However, John Constantine's specific article on clay liners paints a really grim picture of their longevity.
It's a huge problem in older homes.
He notes that these historical clay liners are quietly failing. They are cracking, spalling, and crumbling into piles of ceramic dust under the relentless stress of harsh New England weather and decades of use.
The failure of terracotta is a direct result of physics, specifically thermal shock.
Thermal shock. Okay, explain that.
Well, terracotta is a ceramic. While ceramics can withstand high ambient temperatures, they are incredibly rigid and possess terrible thermal conductivity.
Meaning they don't transfer heat well.
Right. They cannot handle rapid, extreme temperature fluctuations.
So when you light a fire, the inside face of the clay tile is suddenly subjected to a massive blast of heat hundreds or even thousands of degrees.
But the outside face of that exact same clay tile, the side touching the cold exterior brick, might be sitting at 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow. The temperature difference is huge.
Huge. The intense heat causes the inside face of the ceramic to rapidly expand. The freezing outside face remains static.
So the material literally attempts to rip itself apart.
Exactly. The massive shearing forces eventually exceed the tensile strength of the ceramic, resulting in severe vertical and horizontal cracks throughout the tile.
Now, this is where I want to push back on the solutions presented in the text, or rather ask about the logic behind the prescribed fix.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a homeowner has a clay liner with a few vertical cracks in it, the instinct is to simply apply a patch. We patch drywall, we patch concrete. Why do professional outfits like Select Chimney Services forcefully advocate for abandoning the clay entirely and installing a completely new, vastly more expensive stainless steel chimney liner?
It feels like an extreme escalation, right?
It really does. It feels like a massive upsell for a cracked pipe.
It seems like an escalation until we define the primary function of the machine. A chimney is not just a tube for smoke.
Okay, what is it?
Its critical life safety function is to entirely contain and safely vent the highly toxic, invisible byproducts of combustion out of the living environment. A crack in the liner is not merely a structural blemish, it is a fatal compromise of that life safety function.
And when we talk about toxic byproducts, we are talking about carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide is the ultimate silent threat. It is an odorless, colorless, tasteless gas produced by incomplete combustion.
And it's incredibly lethal.
It is lethal because it binds to the hemoglobin in human blood over 200 times more effectively than oxygen, rapidly suffocating the body at a cellular level.
Which is terrifying because you can't see it or smell it.
Exactly. If a terracotta clay liner has even hairline cracks, those toxic gases are no longer contained within the negative pressure of the flue.
They escape.
They will seep out through the fractured ceramic, permeate the porous brick and mortar we discussed earlier, and silently infiltrate the living spaces of the home.
So the structural breakdown of the clay means you could literally have carbon monoxide seeping through the walls into second-floor bedrooms while the family is sleeping?
Yeah.
Entirely due to an invisible crack hidden inside a brick pillar.
And the threat extends beyond the gas, too. Those fractures also allow extreme thermal energy to escape the containment of the flue.
What does that heat do?
Well, in historic architecture, builders frequently framed wooden structural members, floor joists, wall studs, roof rafters, directly against or dangerously close to the exterior of the chimney masonry.
Oh, I've seen that in old houses. Wood right up against the brick.
If a crack in the clay liner allows the 2,000-degree heat from a sudden chimney fire, or even just the intense radiant heat of a normal operating fire, to reach that dry, century-old wood framing, the process of pyrolysis begins.
Pyrolysis.
It's the chemical decomposition of the wood due to heat. The house will literally combust from the inside of the walls out.
So the structural defense is totally compromised. And patching a ceramic tile inside a 50-foot vertical brick column is impossible to do comprehensively.
Right. You cannot guarantee the seal.
Which is why the transition to stainless steel is imperative.
Exactly. The sources advocate for stainless steel because it represents the necessary modern technological upgrade to solve the historical vulnerability.
What exactly is a stainless steel liner?
A stainless steel liner is a continuous, seamless, airtight, and watertight corrugated tube that is dropped down the entire length of the chimney from the crown to the firebox.
Given that it is metal, how does it react to the thermal shock that shatters the clay? I mean, metal expands too.
It does. Premium chimney liners are constructed from specific alloys, such as 316 Ti stainless steel, which is stabilized with titanium.
Titanium, nice.
This metallurgical composition allows the metal to handle extreme temperature swings without degrading, warping, or cracking.
And the shape helps too, right?
Yes, the corrugated design allows the tube to expand and contract vertically as it heats and cools, absorbing the thermal shock rather than resisting it. Furthermore, the smooth interior surface provides less friction for the drafting gases, reducing the accumulation rate of creosote.
So upgrading to a stainless steel liner allows a homeowner to preserve the stunning, historic exterior brickwork that defines Portland's architecture while completely modernizing the internal mechanics to meet 21st century life safety standards.
It's the perfect balance of preservation and safety.
Okay, so we have mapped out a truly intense landscape of overlapping threats. We have the microscopic hydraulic pressure of the freeze-thaw cycle blasting bricks apart.
We have ice dams subverting the laws of gravity to rip up flashing.
We have creosote glazing turning the flue into a highly reactive fuel source, and century-old clay liners silently fracturing and leaking lethal carbon monoxide.
It's a lot.
It really is. Faced with this complex matrix of interior and exterior threats, it is easy to understand why a curious, capable, and perhaps financially conscious listener might be tempted to circumvent the professionals and handle the maintenance themselves.
Ah, yes. The DIY urge.
We live in the golden age of the DIY mindset. The logic is incredibly straightforward. I see a dirty pipe, I should clean the pipe, I'll buy a brush.
The temptation is universal. We are constantly exposed to the illusion of simplicity propagated by online tutorials.
You watch a heavily edited 5-minute video on YouTube, and the process looks totally effortless.
They make it look like anyone can do it.
The video tells you to drive to the local hardware store, purchase a stiff wire brush attached to a few flexible fiberglass rods, climb a ladder, wiggle the brush around the chimney flue for 10 minutes, and congratulate yourself on saving $300.
The sources from select chimney services go to great lengths to aggressively dismantle that illusion.
I bet they do.
The DIY approach to chimney maintenance is not simply ineffective. It introduces immediate severe hazards to the homeowner's respiratory health, the interior environment of the home, and their physical safety.
Let's break down the specific mechanics of those dangers, starting with the interior health hazard. The text emphasizes a critical lack of appropriate equipment in the DIY scenario.
When an amateur shoves a rigid brush down a chimney flue, they are violently dislodging pounds of stage 1 and stage 2 creosote, toxic soot, and heavy ash.
Just scraping it all off the walls.
Right. They are displacing a massive volume of microscopic particulate matter, and that toxic dust cloud must go somewhere.
It doesn't just vanish.
If the fireplace is not properly sealed and negatively pressurized, that entire cloud will bypass the damper and explode directly into the living room.
A homeowner might think they can just hold the nozzle of their garage shop vac near the opening to catch the dust. I've definitely seen people do that.
Using a standard shop vac is arguably worse than doing nothing at all.
Wait, really? Why?
A standard vacuum filter is designed for macroscopic debris like sawdust and dirt. The microscopic, highly carcinogenic particles of soot and creosote will simply pass straight through the standard paper filter, pass through the vacuum's exhaust port, and be violently aerosolized into the air.
Oh my gosh, so the vacuum literally becomes a distribution system for toxins.
Exactly. You will literally coat your furniture, your carpets, your HVAC intake, and your own lungs in concentrated carcinogens.
That is awful.
Professional chimney sweeps do not use shop vacs. They utilize massive, industrial-grade, multi-stage HEPA filtration systems.
HEPA stands for high-efficiency particulate air. How does that filtration actually trap something as small as microscopic smoke particles?
True HEPA filters do not act like simple sieves or nets. They utilize a dense mat of randomly arranged fiberglass fibers that trap particles using 3 distinct mechanical principles.
Okay, what are they?
First is interception, where particles stick to fibers they pass close to. Second is impaction, where larger particles smash directly into the fibers. And third is diffusion, where the smallest microscopic particles bounce around erratically until they hit a fiber.
So it catches almost everything.
A professional HEPA vacuum captures 99.97% of particles down to zero point 0.3 microns, guaranteeing that the carcinogenic soot is safely removed from the house rather than redistributed into the breathing air.
Okay, that handles the invisible chemical danger. But the physical danger of accessing the chimney is equally severe. We discussed the architectural profile of these historic Portland homes.
Right. The physical architecture is daunting.
You are dealing with incredibly steep roof pitches, often exceeding a 12-12 slope, where the roof rises 12 inches for every 12 inches of horizontal run. That's essentially a 45-degree angle.
It's practically a cliff.
Furthermore, many of these homes retain their original slate roofing,
Which is beautiful, but incredibly treacherous.
I have never walked on a slate roof. I assume it is significantly more precarious than walking on standard asphalt shingles.
Walking on dry slate is like walking on heavily oiled glass.
Oh, wow.
Slate is a smooth, natural stone with a very low coefficient of friction. Now, factor in the coastal climate we established earlier. Imagine attempting to navigate that steep slate slope in mid-November.
No, thank you.
The marine layer has deposited a sheen of morning moisture onto the stone. The wind is howling off Casco Bay, and the temperature is hovering near freezing.
The sources are exceptionally blunt about this specific scenario. Attempting to traverse a steep, damp slate roof in a coastal wind without professional fall arrest harnesses, specialized roof ladders, and years of kinesthetic experience is an almost guaranteed path to a catastrophic physical injury.
You are risking your life.
Literally. You're risking your life, or at the very least, a devastating trip to the emergency room, just to save a fraction of the cost of a professional service call.
Beyond the immediate, acute dangers of toxins and gravity, the text articulates a profound philosophical difference in the actual work being performed.
How so?
Well, the DIR, or even, an unqualified, uncertified guy with a truck offering cheap sweeps, is merely executing a blind cleaning.
Yeah.
They are attempting to remove visible dirt.
Just scrubbing until it looks clean?
Exactly. But a certified professional from an established company treats a chimney appointment as a highly technical reconnaissance mission.
They are gathering vital intelligence on the structural integrity of the machine.
Precisely. They deploy specialized technology that is completely inaccessible to the average homeowner. The most critical tool is the high-definition pan and tilt rotary camera system.
Like a medical endoscope for a house.
Yes, the professional drops this camera down the entire length of the flue, broadcasting a live, illuminated high-resolution feed to a monitor. They are scrutinizing every single inch of the clay liner from the inside out.
This is how they locate those microscopic hairline fractures in the terracotta that we discussed.
Exactly.
The fractures that are completely invisible to the naked eye from the roof crown or the firebox, but are actively leaking carbon monoxide into the framing.
They are intercepting the lethal failure before it occurs, and simultaneously, they are conducting a rigorous external inspection.
Checking the outside defenses.
Right. An expert eye is scanning the masonry for missing mortar joints, assessing the integrity of the concrete crown that caps the chimney, and meticulously inspecting the intricate metal folds of the flashing for any signs of separation or ice dam damage.
Because they possess local knowledge of the marine environment, they know exactly what environmental stressors to look for.
Exactly. A generic contractor from 200 miles inland might not recognize the subtle early signs of galvanic corrosion on a stainless steel cap caused by the relentless salt air.
But a local Portland professional understands the specific chemistry of the region.
They do. And when they locate vulnerabilities, they possess the precise materials required to fortify the structure, like the breathable, deep-penetrating siloxane repellents we discussed earlier, designed specifically to arrest the freeze-thaw cycle in coastal masonry.
So they're not just cleaning, they are performing proactive structural fortification.
It's comprehensive defense.
Synthesizing everything we have covered today, the core message of the source material translates into a highly relatable analogy. Managing the health of your chimney is functionally identical to managing the health of a complex 20-year-old vehicle.
That's a perfect parallel.
If you are driving an older car and the amber check engine light illuminates on the dashboard, you might be tempted to ignore it because the car is currently still moving forward. It feels fine.
We've all been there.
But inherently that ignoring the warning is a disastrous strategy. Eventually, a minor, easily fixable sensor issue cascades into a catastrophic, multi-system engine failure that requires thousands of dollars to repair.
In the context of residential building science, the National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA, provides the standardized check engine light for your home.
What's their recommendation?
The NFPA unequivocally recommends annual professional inspections for all chimneys, fireplaces, and solid fuel vents.
Yeah.
That is the baseline, non-negotiable standard for life safety and structural preservation.
If a homeowner ignores that NFPA recommendation, or if they willfully ignore the efflorescence blooming on their brickwork, or the flakes of terracotta resting in the firebox, the outcome is mathematically predictable.
It's just a matter of time.
The freeze-thaw cycle will persist, the creosote will glaze. You are trading a small, predictable, manageable maintenance cost today for a massive, catastrophic masonry rebuild or a literal structural fire tomorrow.
When you evaluate the situation purely on financial terms, the math heavily favors proactive maintenance. The cost of an annual professional inspection and sweep is a minuscule fraction of a standard homeowner's insurance deductible.
It's barely a drop in the bucket.
It is practically a rounding error compared to the staggering cost of a full ground-up masonry reconstruction or the total devastation of a fire. It represents the highest return on investment a homeowner can make in the longevity of their property.
This naturally leads to the most actionable question for the listener. What is the actual timeline? When is the strategic moment to engage the professionals?
Timing is everything.
Because if you delay the call until you actively smell acrid wood smoke leaking into your bedroom, or until you witness a literal waterfall of melting snow cascading over your clogged gutters and pooling against your foundation, the battle is already lost.
By that point, you have completely bypassed proactive defense and entered the reactive panic phase. The damage is already occurring.
To avoid that panic, the experts at Select Chimney Services who field these emergency dispatch calls all winter long note that the smartest homeowners operate on a very specific strategic schedule.
Yes, the most effective strategy is to decouple the preparation from the actual season of use. You do not wait for the winter storms to prepare for the winter storms.
So when should you do it?
The proactive schedule initiates in late summer or early autumn. That is the optimal window to schedule the chimney inspection and sweep.
Oh, that makes sense.
You get the professionals on the roof while the weather is dry and safe, completely avoiding the massive, chaotic rush of panicked service calls that inevitably flood the dispatch boards the morning after the first hard frost.
You secure the interior flue and exterior masonry before the environmental pressure begins. But what about the gutters? We established they are the critical shield for the flashing.
For the gutters, you must allow nature to run its full course. The strategic move is to schedule the comprehensive gutter cleaning immediately after the very last leaf falls from the trees in late autumn.
Don't do it too early.
Right. The objective is to ensure those troughs and downspouts are completely clear, pristine, and flowing freely precisely before the first major snowstorm hits.
Which guarantees that the melting snow has a clear path to evacuate.
Exactly. Ensuring that ice dams possess no organic foundation upon which to build and force water under the flashing.
It is a simple, logical rhythm based on the seasons, and the source material provides a very clear, quantitative metric for when action is required.
What's the metric?
If it has been over 12 months since your last professional inspection, or if you actively burn more than a single cord of wood a season, which represents a massive volume of complex organic combustion, you need to get a certified professional on site.
It's that simple.
If you reside in the Portland, Maine area, the dispatch number for Select Chimney Services is 207-975-5726. You secure the inspection, you clear the gutters, and then when January arrives, you can sit by that roaring fire, listening to the nor'easter howl, possessing the absolute certainty that the machine surrounding you is functioning perfectly safely, venting the lethal byproducts away while keeping the vital warmth locked inside.
We have spent this entire deep dive systematically dismantling the illusion of the static home. We have revealed how a supposedly immovable, permanent brick chimney is, in reality, a living, breathing machine.
Constantly moving and fighting.
It is constantly expanding and contracting, actively fighting a brutal, daily, microscopic war against hydrostatic pressure, ice dams, and volatile chemistry to keep the occupants safe. Understanding the sheer scale of that hidden conflict begs a truly fascinating question for you to consider.
I love where this is going.
As you look around your own home right now, as you look at the poured concrete foundation, the dimensional lumber framing the walls, the complex plumbing systems hidden behind the drywall. What other, quiet, supposedly immovable structures are actually fighting a desperate, hidden microscopic war against the elements to protect you while you sleep?
That is a phenomenal perspective-shifting thought to leave on. The house is a living entity actively fighting for your survival against the environment. You just have to understand its mechanisms and provide the reinforcements it needs. Keep that hidden war in mind the next time you hear the wind rattling the window panes and the snow piling up against the glass. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of your home. Stay warm, stay safe, and we will catch you next time.